In a crowded Indian city where the streets never truly slept and justice often arrived late, Aniya Verma walked every morning wrapped in the same deep red sari, simple cotton, slightly faded at the edges, but unmistakable. It was not a fashion choice. It was armor. Red was the color her mother once said only fearless women could carry without apology. Aniya was a normal Indian woman by every visible standard, late 20s. Middle class, no political backing, no power connections, but the way she moved through crowds made people pause. Her eyes didn't wander. They measured. By day, she worked at a private diagnostic laboratory near the civil hospital, processing files, stamping reports, watching grief pass through glass doors like an endless procession. By night, she returned to a small rented room where the red sari hung carefully folded, ready for the next day like a silent witness. What set Aniya apart was not courage born of training, but an addiction that ruled her completely, an addiction to unfinished stories. Once she sensed something wrong, she could not detach. She did not know how to let silence win. The night the young woman vanished outside the lab, Aniya was still in her red sari, waiting for a bus under a broken streetlight. She saw the girl hesitate, saw the fear flash and disappear, saw her step into darkness that never gave her back. CCTV footage later showed nothing alarming to the police. To Aniya, it screamed. The angle of the camera, the timing, the missing seconds. Indian police registered it as a routine missing case, another file, another family advised to wait. Inspector Raghav Singh, experienced and exhausted, followed protocol. He had learned long ago that hope was dangerous in his profession. Aniya, however, could not unsee what she had seen. She began noticing patterns. Women disappearing along the same routes, within the same hours, wearing ordinary clothes, carrying ordinary lives. Coincidence was the official answer. Design was the truth she felt in her bones. Her addiction took over. She replayed footage at night, cross-checked bus timings, spoke to guards, cleaners, vendors, people the system never listened to. When she approached the police station in her red sari, calm but unyielding, she was dismissed with practiced politeness. "Madam, this is India, not a film," she was told. But Aniya had never believed life followed scripts. Anonymous calls followed. Shadows lingered too long behind her. One morning, a note lay beneath her door. "Stop asking questions." Fear arrived, but it came second. Determination came first. When she returned to the station again, Inspector Raghav finally listened. Not because of her evidence alone, but because a woman brave enough to keep wearing red while being threatened was not bluffing. "This path will destroy you," he warned. Aniya met his gaze steadily. "Sir, I'd rather be destroyed than quiet." Neither of them yet understood that this ordinary woman in a red sari was about to expose a system that survived only because people like her were never supposed to exist. As the investigation deepened, Aniya's red sari became more than fabric. It became recognition. People remembered her. Vendors trusted her. Factory workers whispered to her. In a country where uniforms commanded fear, her presence invited truth. Inspector Raghav worked cautiously, reopening old files under administrative language, aware that Indian policing was often a battle not against criminals, but against influence. Together, they uncovered fragments that refused to stay buried, a textile warehouse operating without production records, a white tempo appearing repeatedly near disappearances, phone numbers that went dead the moment they mattered. Someone was cleaning evidence professionally. Aniya filled the gaps where police could not go. She walked streets alone, red sari bright against gray evenings, asking questions no one wanted asked. One night, her addiction crossed into danger. She followed the white tempo herself, recording audio secretly, heart pounding louder than traffic. The vehicle stopped at the warehouse. Light spilled out. Men laughed. Names were spoken casually, names tied to contracts, politics, protection. Before she could leave, a hand seized her arm. Fear finally took control, but Aniya did not freeze. She screamed, collapsed, bit back. Chaos was her weapon. Locals gathered. The grip vanished. By the time police arrived, the tempo was gone. But the truth wasn't. The recording reached Inspector Raghav, and with it came a realization that chilled him. This was not just crime, it was infrastructure. Pressure followed instantly. Aniya lost her job. Her landlord was threatened. Offers of money arrived, disguised as concern. Then came silence, the most dangerous warning of all. She understood the message clearly. Vanish quietly, or vanish permanently. Instead, She prepared. She recorded her testimony, detailed and precise, encrypted copies shared with a journalist under strict instructions. If she disappeared, the story would live. The raids happened before dawn. Warehouse doors broken, women found alive, documents seized, arrests made despite frantic phone calls from powerful offices. The story exploded nationwide. Officials denied, then deflected, then surrendered to public outrage. Aniya watched it unfold from a hospital bed, injuries hidden beneath a folded red sari placed carefully beside her. Inspector Raghav visited once. "You've forced the truth out," he said. Aniya shook her head slowly. Truth was always there. "I just didn't look away." After the raids, the city pretended to return to normal, but Aniya Verma knew better. Cities never healed. They only learned how to hide scars under louder noise. She resumed walking the same streets, still wearing her red sari, now heavier with meaning. People looked at her differently, some with respect, others with fear. Survivors from the warehouse were relocated quietly, their stories sealed under protection orders. Media attention moved on within weeks, chasing fresher outrage, newer blood. Officially, the case was labeled a success. Arrests made, evidence secured. But Aniya's addiction did not allow closure. Closure was a lie people told themselves to sleep. She sensed unfinished threads, accounts frozen without reason. Officers transferred abruptly, witnesses recanting statements under vague pressure. Inspector Raga felt it too, though he said little. He had already crossed lines that could not be uncrossed. In India, the most dangerous enemy was not a criminal, it was isolation. One morning, Aniya received a message from an unknown number. You opened one door. You don't want to see what's behind the others. Instead of fear, curiosity flared. She traced the number through informal channels, favors owed, quiet conversations. It led nowhere, or rather it led everywhere. Patterns emerged again, older, unsolved cases, different cities, same logistics firms, same paperwork tricks. Trafficking had been only one revenue stream. There were darker ones. Missing case files. Encounter killings with no witnesses, evidence rooms that conveniently caught fire. Aniya began mapping it all, walls of her room filling with notes, dates, names connected by red thread. The red sari became ritual. Now she wore it whenever she crossed into dangerous spaces, as if daring fate to notice her. Her addiction demanded escalation. She started attending public hearings, sitting silently in the back rows, observing bureaucrats who spoke of law while practicing erasure. She learned the language of power, how delays killed accountability, how committees buried truth. When she approached Inspector Raghav with her findings, he did not deny them. He only said, "This is bigger than you think." Aniya replied calmly, "Sir, addiction makes people do irrational things. Looking away would be irrational for me." Against his better judgment, Raghav connected her to a retired IPS officer who had been forced into early retirement after questioning encounter reports years ago. He confirmed her fears. "What you found is a network," he told her. "It survives by rotating faces. Arrest one layer, another replaces it." Aniya realized then that justice in India was not defeated by lack of courage, but by exhaustion. The system waited people out. She decided not to play that game. Instead of chasing criminals, she targeted memory. She began documenting everything, dates, testimonies, contradictions, building an archive designed to outlive her. Each document was duplicated, stored across locations, entrusted to people who did not know each other. Her red sari became familiar at railway stations, libraries, court corridors. Meanwhile, pressure intensified. She was followed openly now. Phones tapped. Friends distanced themselves. One night, returning home, she found her room ransacked, nothing stolen. Only her notes scattered, a message carved into the table. Last warning. Fear finally seeped into her bones. But addiction is cruel, it replaces fear with purpose. She packed only essentials and moved temporarily, continuing her work from borrowed spaces. When Inspector Raghav was suddenly transferred to a remote district, Aniya understood the signal clearly. This was retaliation. Alone now, officially unprotected, she considered stopping for the first time. But then she remembered the women in the warehouse, their silence heavier than screams. She wore her red sari again the next morning and stepped back into the city, knowing fully that she was no longer chasing justice, she was challenging power itself. And power, she knew, never forgave. The final confrontation did not arrive with sirens or gunfire. It came quietly, the way real endings always do. Aniya received an invitation, anonymous, precise to attend a closed-door civil dialogue hosted by a foundation known for philanthropy. She recognized the name instantly. It appeared repeatedly in her archive, always adjacent to corruption, never directly accused. The meeting location was a luxury hotel conference room, guarded but discreet. Aniya wore her red sari deliberately, pairing it with calm she did not feel. Inside, the air was cold with money and confidence. 5 men sat waiting, none of them criminals by official definition. Politicians, contractors, advisors. One spoke first. "You're very intelligent," he said, as if intelligence were a negotiable trait. But intelligence must know limits. They offered her protection, funding, relocation abroad. Her work could continue approved work. Narratives that didn't destabilize. Aniya listened silently. Then she asked one question. "How many women did you decide were acceptable losses?" The room hardened. The tone shifted. Threats followed, polite but unmistakable. They explained consequences calmly: accidents, allegations, disappearances. Power spoke best when it did not shout. Aniya stood, smoothing her red sari. "You misunderstand," she said evenly. "I'm not here to negotiate." She revealed then what they hadn't anticipated, that the archive already existed publicly, time-locked, scheduled for release through multiple channels. That names would surface gradually, legally, relentlessly. Not accusations, connections. Patterns. Proof designed to survive courts. The men realized too late that she was not seeking justice from them. She was removing their ability to deny. Days later, the first release went live. Investigative portals picked it up. International watchdogs noticed. Pressure followed from places even Indian influence struggled to reach. In response, the system reacted predictably: counter-narratives. Character assassination, claims that Aniya was unstable, obsessive. The word addictive was weaponized against her. But this time, it didn't work. Addiction had become her credibility. She never claimed neutrality. She claimed persistence. When attempts to silence her escalated, Aniya disappeared not as a victim, but as strategy. She moved underground, protected by people she had never met but who believed in the work. The archive continued releasing data automatically. Arrests did not reign overnight, but something more dangerous happened. Trust eroded. Institutions were questioned. Silence broke. Inspector Raghav, reinstated quietly months later, understood the cost. He visited Aniya once, briefly, in a safe location. "You changed the rules," he said. Aniya shook her head gently. "No, I removed excuses." She did not stay to be thanked. Heroes who remain visible become targets. Years later, her name surfaced occasionally in footnotes, denied officially, acknowledged unofficially. She lived quietly now, still ordinary, still Indian, still wearing red when it mattered. Her addiction never left, it simply matured. Somewhere another file waited to be reopened. Somewhere another silence believed it was safe. It wasn't, because as long as Aniya Verma existed somewhere between anonymity and legend, the system knew one truth it could never erase. An ordinary woman, addicted to truth, was far more dangerous than any criminal it had ever learned to fight. Years passed, but power never truly forgets a threat, it only waits for distraction. Aniya Verma had become quieter, more precise, less visible. The red sari was no longer daily armor. It was ceremonial now, reserved for moments when she intended to confront something that mattered. She lived under a different rental agreement in a different part of India, her name absent from public discourse, yet quietly present in encrypted networks of activist journalists, and a handful of officers who still believed the uniform meant something. The archive she created continued its timed releases, not explosive enough to be dismissed as rebellion, but steady enough to destabilize confidence. Committee heads resigned unexpectedly. A logistics firm dissolved overnight. A once celebrated contractor faced international scrutiny. None of it traced directly back to her. That was the point. She had learned that martyrdom feeds corruption. It turns whistleblowers into warnings. Survival, however, turns them into myths. One winter evening, an old contact from her early investigation reached out one of the warehouse survivors who had rebuilt her life quietly in another state. She carried information, not rumors proof. A new operation was forming under the guise of rural employment migration. Different branding, same method. Aniya felt the old fire return, steady and dangerous. Addiction does not disappear. It waits for the right trigger. This time she would not chase from the outside. She inserted herself deliberately, applying for administrative consulting under a false identity constructed carefully over years. It was risky, reckless even. But she had studied the system long enough to know where its blind spots lived: overconfidence and paperwork. Weeks passed. She observed patterns again: private transport at odd hours, forged documentation cycles, restricted storage facilities. Instead of reacting emotionally, she documented clinically. She was no longer the woman driven by raw outrage. She was strategy shaped into patience. When she finally confirmed what she suspected, that the same network had regenerated under fresh faces, she didn't. To confront them, she triggered exposure silently. Coordinated raids unfolded across 3 states simultaneously, informed by intelligence that could not be traced. Arrests were quieter this time, less theatrical. International oversight forced accountability beyond local interference. But success came with cost. During one of the raids, a miscommunication led to gunfire. No headlines mentioned her presence, but she was there close enough to hear bullets crack against concrete. Close enough to understand how thin survival truly is. She escaped unharmed, though something inside her shifted permanently. She had always accepted danger. Now she respected finality. That night, sitting alone, red sari folded beside her, she realized the truth she had avoided for years. The system would never fully collapse. It would adapt endlessly, and she could not spend her entire life chasing every mutation. For the first time, exhaustion replaced adrenaline. Not defeat, clarity. She had never intended to become a legend. She had intended to interrupt silence. And silence, at least for now, was fractured. Aniya disappeared again, but differently this time. Not into hiding, into stillness. She chose a coastal town far from the cities that had shaped her war, where mornings smelled of salt instead of smoke. She took a modest job teaching documentation skills to young women: how to file complaints, how to read contracts, how to recognize manipulation disguised as opportunity. It was quieter work, almost invisible. But invisibility had power too. The red sari remained in her wardrobe, preserved carefully, worn only on certain evenings when she walked alone along the shoreline. People who passed her saw only an ordinary Indian woman watching waves break against rock. They did not see the archive that still lived online, expanding through contributors she had trained. They did not see the network of survivors who now protected each other. They did not see how the idea of her had grown beyond her physical presence. Occasionally, news reports would surface another trafficking ring exposed. Another corrupt official questioned, and somewhere in the background of the investigation would be the same pattern she had designed years ago: decentralized evidence, synchronized disclosures, accountability engineered through memory. She never claimed responsibility. She understood something now, that she hadn't in the beginning. Change is strongest when it doesn't demand applause. One late evening, as monsoon clouds gathered, she unfolded the red sari again and draped it over her shoulder. Not as armor, not as defiance, as reminder. She stood facing the ocean while thunder rolled across the horizon, and for the first time in years, she allowed herself to feel something unfamiliar: peace. Not because corruption had ended, not because justice had won permanently, but because silence no longer felt untouchable. Somewhere inland, in an office where decisions were made behind closed doors, someone hesitated before approving a questionable file. Somewhere in a police station, a young officer chose to reopen a complaint instead of shelving it. Somewhere, a girl stepped away from a vehicle she didn't trust. None of them knew Aniya Verma. That was the haunting beauty of it. The most powerful revolutions leave no signature. As rain began to fall, deep red against gray sky, she walked away from the shoreline, slowly, footprints dissolving behind her. The world would continue to produce darkness. Systems would rebuild themselves. But somewhere in that vast machinery of control, there would always remain an uncertainty, a memory of a normal Indian woman in a red sari who refused to look away. And that uncertainty, quiet and persistent, would haunt them far longer than her name ever could.